a number of years back, I went to a call, and it was of a child who was the exact same age as my son, who wasn't breathing. I was the first one on scene, and performed CPR on this poor little guy, and I couldn't save his life. And he was literally, so I'm born on June 7th, and my son was born on June 6th. At the time, he was 2 years old, and this little guy was actually born on my birthday, June
Oof.
7th. So one day younger than my son, and
Ay.
ended up losing him. And so that just sent me down back onto medication, just
Right.
really wrecked me.
Hello, everybody. My name is John Brink, and we are podcasting on the Brink from downtown Prince George, British Columbia, Canada. And for all those people that say, okay, we know where Canada is in British Columbia on the West Coast, right? Right. In the West Coast, British Columbia has a big city called Vancouver, right? And so where are you then? Well, I'm 500 miles north of Vancouver, or for our European friends, 800 kilometers, which puts us in the center of British Columbia, north-south, east-west, big province. And we have lots of forest and nature all around us. Within 50 miles, we have 100 lakes. And we have lots of other friends here in nature: black bears, grizzly bears, caribou, deer, wolf, foxes, you name it, we have them all. We call it paradise. Now, today we have a very, very special guest. His name is Tim McCoy, and I know him. We are already friends because he podcasted me. I believe it was somewhere around January, and I love his story and his background. And again, on my podcast, I want to share that with the rest of the world. And so, Tim, very, very interesting as a podcaster, a veteran from law enforcement, an entrepreneur, and a truth seeker. He has a very, very interesting story about, and I'll still have a challenge with the ayahuasca. So say
Ayahuasca.
ayahuasca,
Yes,
and
sir.
and so Tim, welcome to the show.
John, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate talking to you again. It's an absolute pleasure. You're kind of my hero. I've been watching your stuff, and uh, unbelievable. 85 years old, fit as can be, and super successful in the podcast world and in business world. So it's an honor, honestly. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you very much, Tim, and I very much appreciate that. So share with us and our friends watching us from around the world a little bit of your background on, where were you born, and then as you grew up, you ended up in law enforcement. You were in the army. You were active in the army, and you are a veteran and affected by PTSD and a lot of other things. You were also entrepreneurial, and obviously you are very successful as a podcaster, and have been very, very much involved in media. So tell us a
Yeah.
bit about your past and then work up towards this.
Yeah. So, again, thanks for having me. So I am Tim McCoy. I'm the host of the Tim Teaches podcast. This is the second time I've been on this side of the interview. So uh, I'm working on my story a little bit. But so my dad was a pastor. I'm one of five kids. They grew up in the Bay Area, California, and we ended up moving to Oregon. I was homeschooled. My mom, raised us and taught us and did the best she could. I ended up going to work full time about 14 years old, flipping burgers at a place called the A&W Restaurant. And at 17 years old, I always wanted to go into the military. And unfortunately, I kind of a bad test taker. So my scores were not good enough to go into the active duty army, which I wanted to do when I was 17. And so I ended up joining the Army National Guard at 17 years old. And then through a course of events, I wound up in California. So I had lived in Oregon at the time,
Right.
moved to California in 2001. And so I was working down there doing low voltage IT stuff, which is kind of what I do now on a much grander scale, I guess, aside from podcasting. But 9/11 happened, and I was in the California National Guard. And so I got called up and ended up working on the Golden Gate Bridge for about 9 months. And that was an incredible experience. It kind of, was part of the start of my PTSD, honestly, because at the Golden Gate Bridge, which a lot of people know and some people may not, it's like the number one place in the world, or definitely the United States, that people kill themselves. And so I've literally watched people jump to their death from the Golden Gate Bridge. And then, days later, weeks later, family will show up and talk to them, and you hear the backstories, and it's horrific. And so I dealt with that. I was a young guy,
How old were
21
you
years old.
then, Sam?
21. Yeah.
Still very young, right?
Very young. And
Yeah.
so from there, that was, besides that, it was actually an incredible experience. And I got to work alongside a lot of law enforcement, and really enjoyed it. But I got called up from that and sent to Iraq in 2003, 2004. And so I spent a year in Iraq doing convoy security. And our job was to go out and kind of protect the convoys, go out ahead of the convoy, basically try to get ambushed so the convoy didn't.
So you
And
were Army then?
yeah, Army National Guard. And so
Okay.
there's active duty Army, and then there's the Army National Guard. So in a time of war, they will call up the Army National Guard to work alongside the full time Army.
Okay.
And so um, basically, we were active duty Army at that time. And so yeah, we did. And I'm just gonna kind of give you the brief
Sure.
synopsis, and we can jump into
Yeah.
anything
Yeah.
you want.
Yeah.
So I did that, and I came home. It was, it was an experience. Had some stuff go down there, and came home with a lot of PTSD, and, and so, but I, from working on the bridge, wanted to go into law enforcement, and so I tried to get into the police academy, and it was kind of a rough go for me, and so I ended up leaving the police academy, and not fulfilling that dream at that time. And my story is very long, and we could
Was
go
that
down.
before Iraq that you went to the police academy or after?
It was after. So when I
Okay.
came home from Iraq,
And
I
you were
I
about 24, 23?
yeah, yep, about 23 years old.
Yeah.
And so I signed up. There's a thing called self-sponsoring yourself in the
Okay.
and so I put myself into the police academy, but within a couple of weeks realized that my mental health was not exactly where it should have been.
Yeah.
And one of the training officers said, I didn't tell anybody where I had just come from. And one of the instructors said, I would never want to be in a gunfight with you, or something like that. And this is a kid who's probably 21, 22 at the time. No military experience, just a pretty young police officer. And that really affected me, because he didn't know where I had just come from. And I'd been in a lot of gunfights. And so I decided to pull myself out of that, and ended up moving back to Oregon with my girlfriend, and you know, uh, ended up getting married to her, which was not a great choice for me at the time. And, and things were kind of rough. And I, you know, I went and sought help at the VA, and they just loaded you up on medication, stuff like that, but never really gave you any kind of real help. And so from there, I mean, I'm fast forwarding, because
Yeah. Yeah.
in 2007, my brother, my best friend, was killed in a car accident.
Yeah.
And that really threw me for a loop. It took bad
Oof.
to worse. And so
Yeah.
he was 30 years old at the time when that
Ay,
happened.
ay, ay.
I was 27. And so I had been planning on leaving my relationship and decided that's too much change for me at the time.
Yeah.
And so once I turned 30 years old, which was the same age my brother passed away, I decided, enough's enough. I pulled the trigger, got, out of that relationship and started making some improvements in my life. Um, and working out, trying to eat better. And couple of years after that, ended up meeting my wife, the woman of my dreams, and things started getting good.
What was the trigger though for you to? There must have been something that you knew the relationship you were in was not the right one for you, in combination of losing your brother. That could potentially be the point where you would go from bad even
Yeah,
further down, God only to knows where. But you didn't do that. It became the foundation of going forward and saying, where do I go from here? And what do I need to do step, step, step? What,
yeah,
what, what caused it for you? Because you had all the reasons in the world. You've seen it before, people jumping off the bridges, being desperate for far lesser reasons and far
yeah,
beyond that, so, but it brought you, that's the worst thing that possibly could happen, had already happened to you and was happening at the time, but
yeah,
something inside of you triggered you to say no.
yeah. So I didn't, suicide was, believe most everybody has thought about, what it would be like to kill themselves. That's just the truth. And if you don't say that, you're lying.
Yeah.
But, you know, my mother, my brother was the oldest. He was firstborn son. And, my family, that wrecked our family, losing my brother. And, I didn't want to, I didn't want to die. I felt like I had a lot to live for and had a purpose in this life. But believe me, the thoughts crossed my mind. But when I turned 30 years old, which was 3 years after he died, that was the same age as my brother when he passed away. And so it was like, life is short. You gotta live your life, and you got to make some changes. And so that's really my birthday. When I turned 30 years old was
Right.
the thing that kind of triggered me to want to start improving.
Right.
Um, but it was a very long time after that before I really overcame the PTSD and anxiety, and we can get into that and
But a
my law
step in
enforcement.
that direction was meeting your, getting away from a relationship that was not working, and
Yep.
then meeting somebody new in your life that changed part of that. The other part was looking at yourself in terms of diet, fitness, all those other things which are foundation issues, because they alone can cause you to live a difficult life if that those parts are not working. But that's what started working things. And then still, what was still on the foundation a lot was, and even more so in a way, because PTSD is not only related to war veterans or those that have been affected by war, like I was, as a kid, but also people that had been affected by trauma of different sorts. And you had a combination of all the above. And then
Yeah,
you,
unfortunately, that wasn't even the end of my PTSD. So I
right,
started doing very well. But my wife, we were trying to conceive, and one of the things that happened coming out of Iraq was I had a lot of health issues, endocrine issues, and testosterone, and we tried to conceive for 5 years. Ended up getting pregnant and losing
oof,
3 pregnancies, and some
ay,
of them were pretty far along to where we were expecting to have a child. And so that was pretty rough, but we ended up having 2 children, and uh, a boy and a girl. The best thing that ever happened to me. And I had gotten to the point where I really wanted to be in law enforcement, and so I joined as a reserve deputy for a sheriff's office, and because it was always in my heart, so that was 10 years after I had tried the first time, but I really wanted to do that, and
So you were
I
around
really
40 then?
so I joined in 2013, so I was 33. So
Yeah.
I did about 10 years. But really, what kind of cascaded me was during that experience on a number of years back. I went to a call, and uh, it was of a child who was the exact same age as my son, who wasn't breathing. I was the first one on scene and perform CPR on this poor little guy. And I couldn't save his life. And he was literally, so I'm born on June 7th, and my son was born on June 6th. At the time, he was 2 years old. And this little guy was actually born on my birthday, June
Oof.
7th. So one day younger than my son. And
Ay.
ended up losing him. And so that just sent me down back onto medication, just
Right.
really wrecked me. And we can, from there, I got on medication and needed to change something. And I believe in God, and I believe in a higher power. And I believe that sometimes things happen for a reason, and we may not understand what those reasons are at the time. But my brother-in-law, who I was not close with at all, lives in Utah and is a very successful businessman. And he ended up reaching out to me and saying, "Hey, I invested in this place down in Costa Rica. It's an ayahuasca retreat. I think it would really help you." And
My
I,
God.
yeah, I was like, I'd never even heard about
Can
it,
you believe it?
yeah. And so I was like, yeah, I'll try anything. And so he ended up sending me down there in I think it was December of 23, and it was the most incredible experience of my life. It was like a light switch. I mean, that's how I describe it. But the the absolute healing that I received from that experience, and we can jump into whatever part of that you want. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Um,
So let's just go back to something that I believe is important, because when you were going through the difficulties, you would go back to medicines of some sort prescribed, I presume, by a
yep,
physician
yep,
that, and with all due respect to physicians, I have loved them, I know a lot of them, and they are friends, and all those other kind of things. But myself, my wife in particular, we don't believe much in medicine, and because it fixes maybe one problem and it creates more other ones. And as you get older, I know a lot of friends that get older, they what they call older, so in the last decade of their life, have a whole handful of medicine, and so from there on in, it's straight down in a lot of cases, and medicine don't really teach preventive or being different in areas of what can you do yourself for one, and what are the not so traditional potentials of other natural products that may help you. But the fact is that medical doctors are not necessarily, and I say that in a positive way, are not being taught that, because as many other things in life, medicine and medicine things have to do with money. And
hmm
money is not necessarily what is good for your life. So then, and so we believe, my wife does in particular, and I do believe in natural products and fitness of mind, body, and soul, and if you wish, and those kind of things.
Yeah, you're 100% right. Obviously, there's a place for medicine, and the medical
Sure.
community does incredible work. But I can tell you that being on probably 7 different SSRIs and different medications, they never fix the problem. They might patch it up or numb you or make you feel okay enough to function throughout your day. But once you stop those medications, you go right back to the place you were. And the I don't know tons about ayahuasca, but I do know it's been around for thousands of years, and it's been used by shamanic tribes down in the Amazonian jungles. And um, it really cleanses your soul. It takes all that stuff that happened to you out of you. I understand those things still happen to me, but they aren't who I am,
What
and
is it, though,
so
Tim, physically?
ayahuasca, yeah, ayahuasca it's a vine and a root, and it grows down in South America and the Amazonian tribes. Somehow, geez, it blows my mind, but somehow they figured out it's DMT, so it's dimethyltryptamine, and so it's in the vine of, and I forget the plant that it's in, but they mixed this root and this vine together into a brew, and they cook it, and it's a big ceremonial thing. But basically, you drink about a shot glass. This is the shot glass that I got, and it looks like like mud, basically, and it tastes terrible. In my opinion, some people like the taste of it, but I'm not one of them. And but basically, you go and you drink it, and it's a very ceremonial experience, and they have shamans there, and they music, and you lay down on these mats, but it's kind of a violent experience as far as it makes you physically ill. A lot of people throw up
Oh,
or have to take a lot of craps. It's not a pleasant experience, and it's not something you would ever get addicted to, because it's not fun. But it's the experiences. Go ahead.
so you took then,
Hmm.
you went down there, you got the exposure to it, your brother-in-law suggested, and then, so then you became familiar with what they do, and you took a look at it. It's mud. It tastes horrible. How did
Yeah.
you get to the point in saying, "Okay, I'm gonna try this,"
Yeah.
and
Uh,
then and then after you try it once, you won't never try it again. But you do obviously in some form or fashion. So how did it go from there?
yeah. Yeah. So I've done it. I've been down there 3 times. It's in Costa Rica. And, but I had heard about it on Joe Rogan Experience, another podcaster that you're kind of on par with as far as subscribers. No, just kidding.
I wish. I
Uh,
wish.
yeah.
I'm
But
catching him.
you'll catch him.
Yeah.
But no, I kind of heard about psychedelics helping veterans and helping people with PTSD and stuff, and so it's kind of a weird connection. There's a comedian, Ron White, who's actually on the board of directors at this place called Rhythmia, who's like best friends with Joe Rogan. So it's kind of a really close connection there. But um, you know, I've done it 3 different times, and it's you get a different experience every time. And when I say 3 different times, it's actually 3 different weeks I've done. So I've done 12 different ayahuasca experiences. But the first time I ever went was probably the most healing experience I ever had. And to try to explain exactly what you go through, I wrote it out. And Scott,
I
your
have.
yeah, it's a bit wild,
I
to try to
like
explain
it's.
it.
I've not read all of it, but I
Yeah,
will, especially
it
after this. Ayahuasca. Then, so you took it. So I'm trying to understand that. At what point did you say, "Okay, give me a short class of that," and I take it?
yep.
And so, what
So
did it do to you then, other than the ceremony around it? Yeah, you were
yeah,
in a circle maybe of people, and you have music and blah blah blah, and you drink, and you say, "Ugh," so whatever, and then from there and then you say, "Whoa!" The following
yeah.
day. this changed something in my life.
Yeah, it definitely did. And like I said, it's kind of hard to explain, but you have the ceremony and everybody's in there laying up. You go up, take the drink, and I had some people around me who I kind of knew, and they were doing it too, so it made it a little more comfortable. But you lay down, take the drink, and then um, every ceremony is a little bit different. But um, man, to try to really explain the process, I'll just tell you that the next morning when I woke up, I was shook to my core. I mean, I was shown things in my life, my brother, my mother, the loss of my brother, the child that had passed away. All of those experiences came to me, and I received almost information from a higher power or the universe or whatever you want to call it about those situations, and was shown kind of why those things happen in your life.
Did it reconcile those things for
Yeah,
you, although they never were until then? They were still not reconciled in your being, hence PTSD. I have
sure.
that in for me, issues going back to the time that I was 5 years old. And
Yeah,
four and
absolutely.
3 and 4 during the war years, seeing far too much that I should not have seen. And then, the in the inner child and all those other things still are with me even today.
Well, I think you need to make a trip to Costa Rica.
I've
it's
never been there. So, but
it's it's a beautiful country, and you don't have to partake in the ceremony, but they it's a wonderful experience overall. But yeah, it did reconcile those things, and I understand like those things happen to me. Um, but you're given almost information that makes you understand kind of why those things happen, and some of the stuff, bad things happen, but you know they happen to you, they aren't who you are.
now I want to
That
say
makes
one more thing here, Tim. Sorry, not to interrupt you, but you supplied us with the documents going the ceremony one at Tabasco,
Mhm.
and so is this available to others? And share with us your website, and have you written a book about this, or is
I
it in
I
a
haven't
book or a
I haven't
document?
written any books. I
No.
haven't written any books. I've shared that with probably 30 people, and I would say probably six of the people who've read it have actually gone down and done ayahuasca themselves, just because uh, so what I wrote out there every night after, so the first week, every week is a 4-night ceremony. And
Right.
so every night after the ceremony, it would start about 5:30 at night and go till about 2 in the morning. But you would go back to your room, but I did not. It's kind of like a dream almost, but you're awake. It's a lucid dream. But I didn't want to forget the experience that I had or any of the information that I received. And so every night after the ceremony, I would go and write down exactly what I could remember. And I probably only wrote down a quarter of the actual experience from what I could remember, because there's just so much that happens. But I tried to write it out. I want to make it available somehow to people to read, but you know, if you don't know me or you don't know my background, it might sound it's not in book format. It's
No,
not.
no. But I like it. I'm not surprised about it. All of that I believe, and so I want to share it with our guest. And if I look at the documents, the notes that you wrote at the basket ceremony number 1, and then it goes on describing at nights, the hours heartbroken, and then it describes it, and then it goes to night number 2, Athabasca number 2, coming to Jesus. Then it describes that again, and then it describes it night number 3 ceremony, and then it goes on and the grand final night number 4, and it describes that in detail. And all of that is in these documents that should be available to anybody that wonders what it is, because it described your whole experience. So how do we suggest to our friends that are watching us from around the world to say, does this become available to them?
Well, I'm gonna have to put it on a website, I guess, John. I haven't ever done that, but or you're, Scott's. I'm happy to let you guys throw up a link to Google Docs or something if
Yeah.
you guys want to share it, because you have a much bigger audience than I do. But I will put it out there, and maybe that's basically the way I wrote it. I didn't do any editing
No,
or anything
no,
like that because
no.
I
But
just
that,
wanted
but,
it to
but
be
that in
raw.
particular, Tim, what makes it unique. So
Yeah.
we'll explore that after, and saying that. But for all our friends watching us, that is the objective that you have. That's the objective that we have, and we'll see how we can do that and bring it to life for others, because there are
Yes.
many people around the world that for sure have been exposed to all kinds of forms of PTSD and trauma. But the other part about it is are struggling with it, and to give them exposure to this podcast and your podcast and our story, and this one in particular that you made available to us, of your experience on a day-to-day basis, virtually hour to hour, that changed your life really,
Yeah.
and is significant. So we'll do that afterwards. So so then you went back. So what did it do to you after that? You when after day 4, when you decided to leave and you went back to Oregon, or where you were
Yeah.
substantially a different man from the perspective of
It
that.
was completely different. And so at the time, I was still a sheriff's deputy. So one of the first things I did was I came home and I met with the undersheriff, who was a good friend of mine, and turned in my badge and told them, thanks for the experience. I did 10 years with them. And the reason I did that is because, unfortunately, in the United States and around the world, ayahuasca is classified as a Schedule 1 drug. It's not available to people in the United States.
Oh,
And yeah, and that's just um, a lack of knowledge on the government's part. And I would like
yeah.
to say that I am happy that the VA, the Veterans Administration in the United States, and some of the people in the military and VA are now looking into psychedelics, because that's what ayahuasca is. It's a psychedelic. And because there's been such profound healing with guys who have done it, a lot of special forces guys, a lot of veterans are going to Mexico, to Costa Rica, to all these places where it's actually legal. And the place I went to is a licensed medical facility. It's a retreat, very nice, but it's regulated by the government in Costa Rica. It's not some, mountain
No,
hole
no,
in the wall.
no,
It's
no.
a very well run place.
Yeah.
Um, but when I came back, I'd like to say I'm not perfect, but what it did do is it healed my PTSD. That's what it did. The rest of my life still happens. Things still come up. You have to deal with them, but you have a better way of um, dealing with those, things that would have sent me off the edge, back in the day. Now I can understand, okay, this is for a purpose. You know, but my whole goal coming back was, this helped me so much that I just want to share this information with other people. And that's why I started the podcast, is because there are so many people, including people in my family, friends, who have experienced horrible traumas way worse than me. And if they can receive healing, which a lot of them actually have now, um, I want to share that information with people. And I'm not sponsored by Rhythmia. Haven't made one penny off of Rhythmia. I have no affiliation with them. You know, it's just
No money
it was so
involved.
$0,
Yeah.
zero.
Yeah.
It just was such an incredible experience. And I am fortunate enough that my brother-in-law is on the board of directors down there. And so he's been able to get me down there a handful of times. And we're doing a veterans retreat down there in August of this year. Um, and we're looking for veterans to come and participate in that. And they are doing scholarships to sponsor some guys.
What is so amazing, Tim, is that can you imagine? They have a brother-in-law you're not very close, and that's not unique in any particular situation. That families are busy, everybody's busy, blah 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 blah, and all of a sudden you create this connection
Yeah.
that changes your life, and so, what a
Yeah,
coincidence!
never in a million years would I have
No,
picked. His name's Earl Koski, and shout out to him because this guy, for 10 years we were family functions together. You could barely get a couple words out of him, and he's a business guy and he's busy and has kids and stuff like that. But the thing with him was, I saw a huge change. The reason I agreed to go down there and do this is because all of a sudden, the last year before I went, I see him and he looks like a completely different person. And I'm like, what's going on with you?
yeah.
Well, his wife, my sister-in-law, my wife's sister, actually, she's kind of a woo-woo spiritual girl, and she had done ayahuasca herself.
Oh
And
my,
she yeah, and so but she had done it kind of in some random place, and my brother-in-law is like, if I'm going to go somewhere, I want it to be a legit place. And so he ended up finding this place, Rhythmia, and it, you know, he it changed him. It completely changed him, and so I saw that change in him, which was a reason for me to go. I mean, I'll give it a shot. Why not?
yeah, yeah,
I've heard about it through Joe Rogan and all this
yeah.
stuff. So, yeah, it's crazy how life works,
I
John.
had
I
never
mean,
even heard about ayahuasca. Never even heard of
yeah,
it. No idea. But it shows you that I believe in natural healing, and I
yep,
believe that other than what we are doing, with all due respect to our infrastructure around medical prevention and all of those kind of things, I know that the most important things that we have, this one body, this one mind, and as you already said, the the privilege of being part of Earth can be very short, and you make it the best that it can possibly be. But in order to do that, you need fitness, mental in particular, but also body and health, and does not what is not good for you is toxicity and medicine. But the more natural it can be, the better. And I believe more and more people understand that. And at the
yeah.
end of the day, and that's why I wrote a book about this one here, Living Young, Dying Old. Yeah, you got
This
my
one,
book. That's the one. And so is that it's all about longevity and quality of life. And so for me, my experience was that, having experience growing up during the Second World War, saw far too much that we should not have seen. My dad was called into the Dutch army, and for 5 years, the last time they saw him was before the bombing of Rotterdam. For 5 years, they didn't know he was dead or alive. And so we went through all the difficulty, all the challenges, saw far too much that we should not have seen. And it took me a long time to deal with it. And then academically, I was not a success story. I failed grade 3, I failed grade 7 3 times. And then they said to my parents, what are we going to do with this guy? And they said, well, maybe send him to the mentally challenged school. He said, no, we're not going to do that. And so they said, let's make, and then the teacher said, well, John, he will not amount to much other than, get him a job, and then, he'll be happy. But I always believed that I was just as good as the other ones, not better than. And then, obviously, the Canadians liberated us April the 12th, 1945, 80 years ago. And that's why that is so important for me. And so it made such an impression on me that I knew I would, as I grew up, I would go to the land of my heroes, Canada. And then my grandfather was a master carpenter, my dad was in lumber, and then I wanted to prove to me that I could just as well as others and start with nothing. In suitcase, 3 books, 2 sets of clothes. Where the trees are is in British Columbia. Start from there and come off the bus here 60 years ago, and I can still see where the Greyhound station used to be. And I counted my money at least 3 times. You probably know this one too. I had $25.47. But what I did have is attitude. I'm always positive, no matter what happens. Passion. Whatever I do, I give it 125%. Work ethic. I work harder than anybody. And even now, I get up at 5:30 in the morning. And I always make my bed because I was in the Air Force, drafted, when I was 18 for 2.5 years. And then I always make my bed, and I always think I'm late. And today we got lots of companies, but it's not about that, so I'm busy, and then I love podcasting and sharing with the world. And the other part that has always been important for me, I'm one of the few individuals left that was there during the Second World War, so I always make it a point that during the Remembrance Day, the week of November the 11th, I go to at least 3-4 schools during that week to why are we having this 2 minutes of silence to share with them how lucky we are. And as you well know, looking around the world to Eastern Europe and then the Middle East, and then look at places like Venezuela, Cuba, North Korea, Russia, China, and I can just go on and on, how fortunate we are living in North America. And I fly around a lot. I do a lot of business in the United States. I always sit by the window and I say, it's paradise. It is paradise. How lucky we are. But it took me a long time to figure out, who am I? And then the other part is part of my life I discovered is ADHD. And I call it a superpower, but it took me a long time to figure that out. So I got diagnosed when I was 62. From the time that I left school, after failing grade 7 3 times, I was 12 and a half years old, got a job in a lumber manufacturing factory, and I liked it actually. But then I picked up a book here in a store, and this is the actual book that I picked up, Driven to Distraction. And so written by Dr. Hollowell, medical doctor, has written 18 books, 5 on distraction. And he is ADHD and dyslexia. So do I. And so this is the actual book. And when I picked it up and I looked at it, and I never heard of ADHD. And I wrote in this book, and this is the book, January 1997. I wrote it in Dutch because I was ashamed of it. It implied that you have a mental deficiency of some sort. And I'm still building business and go to the banks and all the things that I do are good. And then I say, oh, by the way, I should tell you I got ADHD, and say, well, have a nice day, right? So, and now it doesn't matter. It's more of an hassle. But I wrote in it then, that's what it is. So the point is that everything is possible, and to stay positive. It took me, and that's why I'm so active about it in a way. That's why I speak about these issues on podcasting around the world, is that, it took me from the time I was 62 being diagnosed ADHD, from the time that I was 12 and a half, for 50 years. I never quite knew, who am I? Why am I different? And then I became a late bloomer, started writing books, starting to do more, making presentations, especially to young people. And then from there, and then started podcasting and building business, and I still do that today.
you you have an incredible life, and I mean everybody. I mean, we would all be so lucky to have the life that you've lived, and it hasn't been all peaches and cream by any means. I mean, life is hard, but you worked hard and you got through it. And I follow you on your Instagram account, and it's incredible. You're just starting a new property company. You're 85 years old. What are you doing? Why don't you relax?
85 years young. That's
Yes,
what I say.
yes. I mean, to start a project like that right now, I mean, obviously you're planning to live to 110 or 120.
120, actually.
Yeah, perfect.
Yes. So, but the whole idea is that, as you said, that every day is precious. If we are so lucky, so fortunate. So seldom is there a day when I get up, and most people will say that day around me. I'm virtually always positive, and obviously I'm a businessman as well. I can be hard-nosed, and I've been there, I've done that, and all of the, but I've seen it all. And that to me became the foundation, is that still I have that. And so the most important part in my life is attitude, passion, work ethic. What will follow is success. And all the things that you do, and everything is possible. The other part important to me, Tim, is that as you can see behind me, I'm writing another book that's coming out in June. I'm going to make sure I send you a copy of that as
I
well.
would love it.
It's about communications, and which are the most important. About communication skills is something critical to success of any sorts, and may it be in relationship, may it be in finding a job, having a job, entrepreneurship. And I quote a number of billionaires as to their opinions about and but how well they did in being communicators, is always being the foundation, and so it's very, very important.
So if you're somebody who's young, like 45, like me, I'm almost 45, and you're kind of just starting out. I mean, I have a business. I'm a one-man show. I do IT and travel around and stuff like that. I mean, but that's not what I want to do for the rest of my life. What would you suggest? And I'm curious because you're obviously very successful. I'm kind of at this crossroads in my life where I'm like, what do what, do I just leave that career path and follow my dreams, or do I, because I'm away from my family all the time, and it's just not, it's it doesn't fill my heart, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
It makes money.
And so what I say a lot of times, a lot of people think that successful, what they call successful entrepreneurs, spend most of their time planning holidays and bringing money to the bank. I said, no, that's not the way it is. It is a hard and a difficult road. And then the other part, I saw a program on the US station, I forget now which one, that said that 75% of the people that work in the United States, I believe Canada is the same, do not like their jobs. And
Mhm.
70% of that 75% are looking for another job. And so, and then a lot of times when I make presentations to young people in particular, in high schools or colleges, universities, that I say, finding your passion is critical. And so then, and because I asked them, a lot of them is saying, what are you going to do when you finish here? And say, I don't know. They said, well, what I would do is saying that, and that's what I did. If you want to be a truck driver or wonder what it is like, talk to a truck driver. See what they do. Should you own the truck? Should you ride for somebody? Do this, that, and the other. Find out about it. And then, or you want to be a contractor or building houses, for instance, talk to somebody that is doing it. Talk to him about what does it take, blah, 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 blah. You want to be a real estate agent, talk to somebody who does that part. Or you want to be a lawyer, talk to a lawyer. Tell them that this information, don't start billing me, but I'm just tongue in cheek. But you talk to them, they would like to talk to you. Or you want to be an accountant, talk to one of them. Or an entrepreneur. I get some people approaching me, and I love to talk to them about that. And then I felt I had to write a book about it, so I did that. I'm not sure if I send you this one, Finding Your Passion, Living the Dream.
I got it.
That's the one.
I haven't wrote. So all the answers are right here. Then I haven't read it yet. I'm an
That's
audiobook kind of a guy.
yeah. So the point there is that. So then, and the fair question would be, hey, John, since you started working when you were 12 and a half, and now you're
Yeah.
nearly 85, so for 73 years, have you worked all the time? So tell us, John, are you living the dream? I say every single day, I'm living the dream. And so what gave me the advantage is that I went into lumber, and my grandfather was in it, my dad was in it, and I love it. And that's the benefit that I had. And then obviously entrepreneurship and all the other things. So my suggestion to you is that, and others, is that my relationships are very important with my wife and everybody around me, is that entrepreneurship can be very demanding, so you need that support. And then the other part is that then finding something that you like to do and that takes time and staying the course. It's no different with, as from your experience, Tim, is all the things that you've done, staying the course and saying, okay, where do I want to go from here? Is find out what it will take and how do I go about. Look at podcasting that we are doing right now. It comes natural to you as it does to me, and it's an amazing, it's the new media. It's only at its beginning, and it will go much, much further. So my dream is already, in terms of all the silos that we have, lumber, I want to double that in size. We have another silos, warehousing, distribution, logistics, we want to double that in size. The other one is real estate, residential, commercial, and industrial. And so I'm looking ahead the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years. Where do we want to go? And then the other part is staying the course, and then with media is another silo. I want to go to a platform, and so I like it, and I keep writing books, and it may take time because writing books is not easy, and getting them into the marketing and blah blah blah. All of that takes time. But if you stay the course, at some point, as you well know from your life, something will happen unexpectedly, Earl, in your life, and something will happen. And but I say a lot of times, success will try to find you, and then it just becomes a question of the more you reconcile what are your passions, where are you, have you the benefit over others. You have an amazing story, amazing background. You're a very good communicator. And so from there on in, the door is wide open for you. And that's what I feel. And people say to me sometimes, a little bit tongue in cheek, when I give presentation, and people say to me, does it still bother you that you failed grade 7 3 times? I said, yeah, it sure does. It still bothers me today. They said, really? Yeah. I said, really? I think you should have quit earlier. So yeah, a little bit tongue-in-cheek. But what I'm saying is there is different education. There is formal education, and then there is life experience education, and everything is available to me, and obviously it served me well in the not so formal areas. And it is unfortunate in a way that that I had to wait for 50 years before I understood who am I, and what is this ADHD things, and then PTSD. Although I can deal with it more now than I did before, but it's still, as you know, it will never leave you to the extent that it is behind you. It will always be there, and I share it with others how fortunate we are living here in North America,
Yeah.
both Canada and the United States.
Yeah, there's so many people out there dealing with problems, and really that is the reason why I started this podcast. And I don't make money on it, but I do want to talk just for a quick second. If there are people out there struggling with mental health challenges, especially PTSD, depression, anxiety, I've talked to people who, recently, I haven't released it yet, but a lady whose husband was a veteran just killed himself. There is help out there. If you're watching this and you are struggling, please don't go to that extreme. Like, there are other options out there, and reach out to myself or other um, professionals, and you know, you're special. You're worth it. Like, don't uh, take the easy way out. It is the easy way out, but not for, maybe for you, but not for your family and your friends.
Exactly. And then the other part about it is for those that people reach out to, that could well make the difference in their lives. Give them the 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes, go for a coffee. If they reach out and you have uneasy feelings, reach out to them and give them that comfort, because as you say that there is always ways and means of dealing with issues, and watching podcasts like ours, I know, will help people around the world. And so that's why I like it. That's why I'm doing it and doing more of it. I don't make any money on it like Joe is. And I don't know why he hasn't invited me on his show. But same as, my bodybuilding. I'm the oldest competitive bodybuilder in North America. And I qualified for the Arnolds, and I qualified for the Nationals. Exactly. And so I've been
Come on,
saying,
Joe.
Arnold, I want to compete again with him. And I've said, if you know him, tell him that John wants to talk to you. And to him, I say, I'll be back.
I love it. Man, John, I really appreciate you having me on again, or having me on and talking with you again.
So let's stay in touch, Timony. And so we'll have a discussion about. I like your document that you made available to us,
Yeah.
and I think we should have it available to others that are watching. And for all those people around the world that are watching us, subscribe to our podcast if you find it interesting. You want to see more of both Tim's podcast. What is your podcast again, Tim?
Yeah. Tim Teaches Podcast. We're on YouTube, and then you can follow along on Instagram. It's just Tim Teaches Podcast on YouTube, and then Tim underscore teaches at on Instagram. So pretty easy.
Subscribe to us, share it with others, and like it, because it encourages us to do more.
Absolutely.
Tim,
Thanks, John.
it was a privilege again and a pleasure. Stay in touch, and we'll stay in contact.
I appreciate you. Thanks for having me on, and keep those numbers. You're almost at 1 million.
I know it. Thanks, Tim. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.